Time now for a Pendeford Yard progress report.
Hello and welcome to another Pendeford Yard update. Now, in a previous video we did say that we weren't going to bring you any video footage and it was just going to be predominantly slideshow, but guess what, we've got some video in this one. But first, let's go and have a look at the progress that's been made since the last video. And there's been quite a lot actually, and Simon's now started to move on to the scenic side of things, having pretty much completed the track laying, including solving the problem of that motorising of the complex Swiss Army knife junction that we talked about in the last episode. Now the first image that you can see here is a rather nice Class 81, which is a hybrid of a Trix body on a Bachmann chassis, and it's at the part of the layout that's had possibly the least amount of track work apart from that the rather complex junction. It's showing, however, that the progress has been fairly rapid in terms of laying the track. Now the other side of the layout has seen the largest amount of track work, and here we see that 81 again on the approach road to where the main line will connect to the new steelworks exchange sidings, and the track work behind the 81 is the track that will lead into the steelworks. Here we have an aerial shot of the exchange sidings. On the left you see the connection that was just in front of the 81 in the previous image, and it shows just how much track work is now being fitted to allow the exchange sidings to function, and an aerial shot of that connection. The track, as I say in the background there at the very rear, is for the it will eventually go into the steelworks and will be worked by the industrial shunters. Now back to the other end of the layout, and that complicated piece of track work, the Swiss Army knife junction as I've called it. Here you can see that the way that the junction will work will give complete access to both the original Pendeford Yard and the new exchange sidings. And again you can see some of Simon's handiwork here with the OHLE masts. Of course, being a complicated junction, the masts are more robust at this end because they would have to contend with a lot more weight in terms of the overhead catenary. Now those of you who don't have a giant 747 size Wasp-Whoopie gusset about Facebook will remember that Simon ran on his Pendeford Yard Facebook page a bit of a mini competition to try and guess what these structures were, and they're actually, as you can see, the security cages that would have housed the propane gas cylinders that were used by British Rail to heat points and to stop them freezing in the winter. And I have to say, I can remember seeing these all around Biscuit Yard when I used to commute into Perry Bar at Birmingham Polytechnic and pass through the station on a daily basis, and it's one of those things that a lot of people would probably forget about, but Simon's, fair play to him, he's actually scratch built these, and they do look the part. So it's an indication that actually small details like this can make a hell of a difference to how a layout looks. Now I mentioned the OHLE, and Simon has been hand building his own portal frames based on those that are to be found in and around the Stoke-on-Trent area with which he is familiar. Now, OHLE is a bit of a mixed blessing. I've recently been installing the Daypole ready to plant OHLE on my layout, which is, I think, does add a hell of a lot. And I did happen to send Simon a couple of short pieces that I got spare just for him to have a look at and see whether he was interested. He's decided to go with the Pico overhead line wiring, as it comes in longer lengths, and it's designed to be soldered to their metal masts. Now, I'm a solder phobic, so I went for the easier Daypole. Mind you, having said that, it's not that easy, but yeah, you don't have to solder it. So Simon's going to be installing the knitting on this layout. Good luck with that, Simon, because you're going to struggle to clean the track if you're not careful. So he's had to hand build his portal frame gantries, of course, because the only ready to run OHLE that's available from the manufacturers is the plain line masts at the moment. Pico have been promising portal frames since Methuselah was in nappies, and they seem to be proceeding with all the urgency of an arthritic slug, but they keep promising to do them. But in the meantime, Simon's building his own and actually doing a pretty good job. You have, fair play. It's not the easiest of stuff to make, but he's cracking on and obviously enjoying it. In this image you can see the heavy duty OHLE gantries that you would find on junctions. Because of the additional weight of the copper wiring, they're beefed up, and so Simon's here has actually made the correct form for the junctions. And you can also see there the security cage for the point motor heaters. And also you'll notice here some of the additional detailing, dummy point motor and the concrete ducting that would carry the telecommunications cables. At the other end of the layout you can see here there's some more OHLE work. Just a quick word about that cream coloured building that you can see in the foreground, and it's actually a 3D print that I did for my layout, and I made quite a few lift buildings, is the best way to describe them, influenced by those that used to be at Birmingham New Street. However, when I changed the plan I had a lot left over, and when we measured it up it more or less matched the dimensions of a small relay room. So I sent some surplus ones that I got left over down to Simon, and it'll turn out as a small relay room of the sort that used to house interlockings and things like that, in place of a signal box basically. It needs to be reclad in brick plasticard because I designed it with a tiled finish, and probably the door will need changing as that's a lift door with a lift button. But it just shows actually what a contribution 3D printing can make. I've used a lot of 3D printed parts on my new layout. It's been brilliant. I used the infamous, some would say, oldie printer, which was made by Balco, and I used it so much I broke it, and I've not been able to repair it. If you're interested in doing 3D printing, get a good, decent quality one. I, as I say, broke my oldie printer, and I had to buy one quickly. Didn't want to spend too much to finish off some 3D printing, and so I bought a G-Tech E180, and I would not recommend that at all. It is a pile of crap. So if you're interested in 3D printing, it's a great way of doing scratch built structures in a modern contemporary way. You have a different set of skills compared to normal scratch building, but it is scratch building. Don't let anybody tell you anything otherwise. And it is brilliant for doing all those niggling little things that you struggle with plastic art. One example that I've done is a disabled access ramp, which on the 3D printer I was able actually to build to modern building regs spec. As a retired town planner, I tend to research these things. Compared that to my old exhibition layout, King's Oak, where I wanted to build a disabled ramp into the library building, and it was a nightmare doing it in plastic art. Trying to get it's the handrails and the ramp angle, you just can't get it right. So 3D printing is an absolute godsend, and I would recommend anybody who's even just remotely computer literate to just have a go. It's if you're building a layout, it can really make a difference, and get you some really very, very nice finished details. And now for the wire fetishists amongst you, gratuitous electric wiring. This first image, I think, is of a point motor, and the next image is of the point motors, which I presume are feeding the Swiss Army knife Junction. I say presume because the other producer forgot to send me some crib sheets, so I'm just guessing, frankly. Sorry, Simon. I mean, even I struggle to make electric wiring sound interesting. I mean, really, what do you expect me to do? I'm not Coco the Clown. It's wiring, and it's point motors. Now, a little bit of information. Simon's using, I think, the Cobalt geared motors, which I know he's used elsewhere, and he gradually replacing the other point motors that were on his layout with those. They're far more reliable, but yeah, I mean, it could just be electrical linguini as far as I'm concerned. So there we go, that's the slideshow, and as you can see, everything's moving on, and moving on to the scenic items. Now, some video footage, and this is largely of test runs with different types of rolling stock. Now, you're seeing it warts and all. It's not the usual polished edits that we normally do, and that's just basically so you can see what's going on, and some of the issues that are still taxing Simon whilst he's rebuilding the layout. For example, that Janus, which we'll be coming to in a minute, which was an absolute steal from Hatton's, just under 50 sheets. I mean, you can't blame it. Having said that, it's got all the pulling power of, well, nothing really. I mean, it struggles to pull its own shadow. So it's going to need some additional weight putting into it. But really, 50 sheets, you can't complain, can you? So you'll see trains running through. There's a full-length MGR featured. So I'll just leave you to enjoy these warts and all videos, and then I'll just pop back at the end. Come on. So that's it. Until the next episode, whenever that'll be, this is Mark Wiles saying goodbye for now.